Shabbat Shalom and welcome to this week's installation of a Bissele Torah. The Sidra this week is called Bahalotcha, and it's all about the construction of the menorah, which really is the emblem of the Jewish people. It sheds light, it gives light, and the eternal lamp that we have in the synagogue is the great-great-grandchild of the menorah. And the menorah, again, more than even the Magen David, is really the Star of David, that is really the symbol of the Jewish people more than all else. Light is a very powerful symbol for us, our faith. But it's not that I want to pay attention to in this brief Bissele Torah. I want to pay attention to chapter 10, verse 9, where it talks about one of the most unfortunate things that humanity is prone to time and again throughout our history, and that is war. When war happens, when we are forced to fight a war, a shofar is sounded, is blown to gather all the people together and to warn them of the impending danger, to gather people together and let them know that this is very serious and people need to gather together to fight off the enemy. In the book of Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about something that sounds quite similar. In the 20th chapter, it talks about when you fight a war, you need to go out and God will be with you and God will preserve you and you will ultimately come out victorious. But the one item that's missing from the book of Devarim that is present in our Sidra is that the shofar is not sounded in Devarim, but is sounded here. So what's the difference between the two situations? Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotz makes the observation that in this week's Sidra, it's talking about a war that's fought in your backyard, in your nation, in your community, on your ground, that there are invaders at the gate. And when that happens, you blow the shofar to alert people that the danger is present, it's real, and immediate, and that everybody needs to gather the forces together to shield those who are defenseless, and for those who can take up arms to gather together to do so, to prevent what could be a terrible tragedy for all. But in the book of Deuteronomy, we're not talking about a nation invading us. We're talking about, generally speaking, a war. And the shofar is not blown then because the people have been galvanized by what the leaders have told them and they're prepared for the war. But when strangers are at the gate and the danger is immediate, the shofar is blown to tell people this is immediate. Do we not do the same thing in Rosh Hashanah and at the end of Yom Kippur? We blow the shofar because there's also a danger that we've been callous, a danger that we've been ignoring the realities of our life, the sins that we've committed, and the patterns that we've fallen into, and that we, of necessity, need to recognize and break so that we can live a holistic life, one that is more based in justice and godliness than egotistical concerns. And Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotz says this is very similar to the war that we wage on an ongoing process every single day. That the enemy at the gates, that's referred to in our Sidra, is similar to the Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination that exists inside of all of us that urges us to do things that we ought not to consider, and we certainly should not do. And we should consider the fact that the shofar needs to be blown when the war is present on our own ground, when we're fighting a war. Time to take up the shofar and to alert ourselves that we're about to do something that is against God and against our best self, our Yetzer Hatov. So the Sidra, I believe, has two very salient points. Be aware that we defend ourselves against enemies from without. And be aware, too, that we always need to be vigilant, to be prepared to defend against the enemy within, which sometimes, most of the time perhaps, is greater than the former. Shabbat Shalom.